This is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Hey, it's Baxter Colburn here from Public House Media. Did you know that we just added a store here at Public House Media? No, I'm not talking about a grocery store where you can go buy apples or bananas or peanut butter, which are all fantastic, especially when peanut butter's on all of those. Anyway, we've added a store here at Public House Media so you can not only come and represent your favorite podcast network, but also represent your favorite shows as well, too. Just go over to thephmedia.com and look in the top right corner where you'll see the button that says Store. Click on that and you can search through all of our great products. Or if you go to our Facebook page, Public House Media, you can see on the left-hand side a tab that says Store. All of our products are listed there as well too. It's the new Public House Media store. You don't want to miss it. It is fantastic. Buy some of that great swag to support your favorite shows and to support Public House Media. Check it out today.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning in to the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
Hey guys, Hollywood Happy Place is powered by Zoom, the leader in modern enterprise video communications. They have got an easy, reliable cloud platform for video and audio communications, so I can schedule an interview that will automatically be recorded. Then, all my guest and I need to do is click the link and we are in. Best of all, I get a clear, downloadable recording of every conversation emailed right to me in seconds. It's that easy, so if you've been looking for your own simple podcasting or conferencing solution, I suggest that you get your free account today. Just visit zoom.us and check it out for yourself. Yo, 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 and hello again, everyone, and welcome to Hollywood Happy Place. I am Jerry Strauss. Thank you so much for checking us out once again. We are here on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, on Google, on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, on YouTube. We are everywhere, man. And, of course, we have to thank our friends, our family, our team at Public House Media for that. They are holding us down and getting us out there into the world and into your eardrums, your ear canals, so to speak. We encourage you to make that as easy for yourself as possible. Check out every episode. That's what they call them, of this show as they are released by subscribing using whatever platform you want. You know, iTunes is a great one, Apple Podcasts, just real easy to subscribe. If you can, leave us a rating, leave us a review. Let them know that you like the show. If you in fact do, it helps tremendously with our promotional efforts and our overall success. It's all because of you guys. It all goes back to you. So thanks again for being here, HHP, this week. A lot of great feedback from our last episode with the great Holly Robinson Pete. So cool to talk to her. Such a cool lady. And so great for her to make so much time for us. She has got just a crazy personal and professional schedule, as you heard us talk about, between her reality show, her family, the Holly Rod Foundation, all the charity work that she does, all the good she does in the world. And it's really cool, really motivational to hear her talk about the priorities in her life and how she kind of juggles her day, juggles her week, juggles her career. And we're going to hear some of that this time out. This is a really unique episode, guys, because we are talking to somebody who I honestly didn't know a whole lot about before we spoke. It was a name that I had to kind of learn about, that the opportunity came up to speak to her through a PR representative, an agent that I'd been in contact with, and read up on her and her project. Her name is Marie Cummings, and if you have not heard that name before, you will. You're going to start hearing it more and more out there in the world. Marie is a veteran of the stage for many, many years here on the East Coast, and then she did something really brave right in the middle of her career. After decades of success doing what she was doing, she decided, you know what? I need to move to the West Coast. I need to switch gears. I need to focus on a new dream, a new passion. And she sold her house. She just headed out to the West Coast to finance this project that she stars in, that she directs, writes. She is at the helm of this thing, and it is called Conversations in L.A. And again, if you haven't heard of it yet, you will. She is now filming season number 3, and it's an episodic show, a very intimate show, and a very poignant show about a woman, played by her, and a budding, evolving relationship with a younger man who she meets in episode number 1, and a lot of things that go on in both of their lives separately, together, amidst that backdrop of living in L.A. It's a rough show at times, kind of a ugly show, and in the most dramatic, the best way possible, meaning that their lives certainly aren't picture perfect. They deal with a lot of pretty nasty, ugly situations. But at the same time, the cinematography is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal. The performance is at a theatrical level because the way the show is filmed is with very long scenes, which requires the performers to truly perform on a very long-term basis as far as scenes, big, long scenes that they have to kind of carry through as if they were on the stage. Not a lot of cutting, not a lot of cuts, not a lot of opportunity to learn small chunks of a scene at a time. These are big, long, breathing scenes that have a whole lot to say, and Anne-Marie certainly has a whole lot to say. So much so, in fact, that this conversation, man, totally out of control. She and I began chatting, and we started digging into the process of making this show. It was so fascinating, so captivating, especially kind of feeling the energy of her passion, and just everything that goes behind why she does what she does, and all the work that she truly does to make this show happen. We just kept talking and talking. And a project that I didn't know a whole lot about ahead of time became something that we talked about beyond a normal episode of Hollywood Happy Place. As a matter of fact, we spoke for about double the length of time that a normal episode of the show is. So we've decided to give you the entire chat, because I think that whether you're familiar with Anne-Marie or not, whether you've seen Conversations in L.A. or not, you're going to be swept up in the motivational factor of hearing someone so passionate about their craft speak about it. I know I was. So we are going to give you part 1 of this conversation right here in just a couple of moments. And then next week, not 2 weeks from now, but 1 week from now on Wednesday, we are going to drop a special bonus episode of Hollywood Happy Place. And that's going to contain the second half of this supersized convo with Anne-Marie Cummings. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and you ride with us to the next episode next week. It's a bonus one. We're putting it out there for you guys. And thank you very much for giving it a chance. I think you are going to be moved and affected and hopefully inspired by the words and by the spirit of Anne-Marie Cummings. And it's all right here on Hollywood Happy Place.
Hello?
Hey, Anne?
Yes, hi, is this Jerry?
Yes, it is. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so
Oh,
much for this.
oh, no problem. Likewise. Thank you so much. I have a really important question to ask you before we even get started.
Okay.
Do I call you Anne or Anne Marie?
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. It's
Sure.
Anne Marie.
Okay, good, good. I just for some reason that just did not occur to me at all until this very second. So I
Oh,
figured.
no, I'm so glad you asked because, yes, it is a definite Anne Marie. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy that we were able to connect. So thank you. Um,
Where are you
I,
located right
I
now?
I am in New Jersey. Uh,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. So I mean, it's interesting because we're probably experiencing very different things, atmospheres right now. Because today is our first day in months that has gone above like 50 degrees. So, um,
Oh,
yeah.
my God. That's torture.
It's been really weird because, I mean, obviously it's technically the spring already, but we had snow as recently as a few days ago. So, uh,
God. Oh, my God. I know that. I know this very well. Believe me. I know this, and it's like 8 months of winter. It feels like it's an entire year. Oh,
yeah, it's very unpredictable. The older I get, I feel like the weather has just become much more unpredictable. It used to be a lot more dependable back in the day.
oh, I know. Winter was winter, summer was summer, spring. Yeah, I get it. I know. Well, I mean, it's been weird since I moved to Los Angeles with all the fires and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and just seeing how the wind is a big factor here.
Mhm.
you know, it's a
Mhm.
very, the sun is always shining for the most part, but so the fires are raging. It's
It,
quite wild.
it's like an action adventure movie, like all the time, just living around there. It's big budget special
You
effects all
know,
around you.
I know. It really is. It really, really is. So,
Well, it's interesting because, and I mean, we're in it now. I'm already recording, so we're
oh, you are? Okay,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
So, but I mean,
Okay.
no, it's interesting because one of the things that really strikes me about you and reading about you and learning about you is the fact that you've had this amazing career and this amazing life that has been centered, the majority of it, on the East Coast, and then you go over to the West Coast for the last few years, and it's almost like a totally. It feels like it would be almost a separate chapter in your life, both from a cultural perspective and from a professional one. Um, do you feel that way? Like, does it feel like there was a big culture shock just moving the time you finally decided to move and focus over there?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. And I'm sure some people will relate to this too. I think that first of all, it was needed. I got to a point where I just was, and there's nothing like fireplaces and snow and just being able to get all nice and warm and toasty after running around outside in the cold. I mean, this is always wonderful.
Mhm.
But it did get to a point where I was like, okay, I think I've had enough. And my brother and his family, they live in Thousand Oaks, and I visited them one summer before I moved here. And I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing over there? What am I doing on the East Coast? I'm missing out on all this. And I mean, take it for what you want. I'm a Sagittarius. So I have, for anybody who likes astrology, I really like travel and I like being in different places and I like to explore different areas of the world. And I've always been like that. And so I just felt like, yes, it was a new chapter and a much needed one in terms of artistically. I started doing a lot of research about people who moved into the film industry. And, you know, I'm a late bloomer in terms of like, I didn't have an interest in film and TV until late in my life, in my late 40s.
Mhm.
But I have always watched, even though my whole life has been in terms of artistic, creative life in the theater, I've always watched films. And I was listening to an interview. I was in upstate New York in the cold, huddled next to a fireplace. I was listening to an interview with Ridley Scott and how he had gone from design, art direction into film. I thought that was very interesting. So I just thought, this is not going to be that difficult for me. I just need to move. I need to be in the right environment. And, you know, this environment feeds, I believe that your environment feeds you. And this environment sort of stimulated me. I really do believe the sun and the weather here has stimulated a new part of me. Which is this merging of certainly theater onto film, but merging all of my talents into one. You know, this is where my acting, you know, certainly Conversations in LA is where my acting, writing, directing, and producing all come together. And, you know, the weather here, the heat, the cool nights, this desert climate, there's something that really feeds me artistically and strengthens me. You know, I find the cold can be kind of draining, but the heat, and maybe, I mean, it wasn't always that way. I think that I just got to a certain point, but the heat here really feeds my, you know, my whole being. And I got to say, I have allergies, and this is the first place I've lived where I have zero allergies. I think it's the dry heat. It just really works with me.
Yeah, just the more consistent kind of, I guess, higher temperature thing, so to speak. I want to say something, and I'm sure that this is going to, you know, reflect badly upon me, but I'm going to take everything you said and create a metaphor that's going to just dumb it all the way down, and I apologize in advance.
Go for it.
So you said you're a fan of film. Have you ever seen a film I consider a classic? You know, many people may not. The Karate Kid, the original Karate Kid.
Yes.
Okay. So the meta, and maybe this is definitely a reflection of how simplistic I make things, but when you're talking about acquiring all these skills over a long and storied career and putting them all together, I'm thinking about that process of Mr. Miyagi making Daniel like paint a fence and wax his car and do all these ridiculous chores that was frustrating him, making him wonder why he was doing these pointless things, only to find out during training that these movements were actually creating this fighting style when it all came together that enabled him to like be this great karate fighter. So like in a way you've put yourself through the Karate Kid process, and now you are ready for your black belt.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that is so beautiful. And that is, I've had these discussions with people who've known me for many years, and have seen my journey as an artist. That is exactly what I've done. And I've in many ways, I've had mentors and teachers along the way, but I feel like I've been the person who's put myself through that. I've been referred to as an autodidact, you know, somebody who teaches themselves their skills. And, you know, even though I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, the drama program there, which was really rigorous, I took myself on a journey, my own journey of, you know, I first concentrated on my acting for the first, I guess, like about 12 years. It was really after Carnegie Mellon, my acting, that's what it was about. And then I decided to venture into writing, and write plays and focus on the writing side of things. And then I had a theater company and I focused more on directing. So here it's where I've been able to, and honestly, right before I moved here, with my theater company, I probably read 100 or more plays a year. And I had a script reading committee, and we would read and discuss and read and discuss. And I got to know so many different playwrights. And there is something that happened to me in that isolated state of spending a lot of time reading. And certainly there were a few plays that I was writing in that phase, that last few years before I moved to LA, where I could sense something was happening to me as a writer, where I was finally letting something something was taking over. I was finding my voice finally, and it was exciting because I was learning I was teaching myself a process. And then when I moved here, I needed somebody. My first teacher, Ron Osborne, who he was one of the writers of Moonlighting, the old TV show with Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd.
Sure.
And also The West Wing. He was a writer for them. And so Ron was what I call the Officer and a Gentleman type of movie, where it was really hard. He was tough on me to the point where I didn't know if I could get through it. He saw that there was something that was brewing, and he saw it in me, and he saw my determination. And he would beat me down, with my writing, like what I would show him. He'd beat me down, but I'd come right back. And I was like, you're not going to beat me down. I'm going to show you I can do this. Because I learned with him how to overcome major writing obstacles. And I think all writers understand this, that, it's never, you're not just going to sit down and write one draft and that's it. Come on, you've got to work at it, and you've got to know you've got to find your technique, and you've got to find your style, and you have to find the best hours when you like to work, and you have to find what it is that's going to work for you as a writer. And Ron got me to that place. And then once, a year after I moved here, conversations just came pouring out of me. I mean, I have a lot of other stories, but films and other TV shows even that I've developed that I want to work on. But, this one it's just that time in my life. And, hey, I'm 50 now, and, it just takes time. And I started recognizing that I was an actor, writer, director. Pretty much I started recognizing that just before I got here. I could sense it. I could feel it, not just because I was doing it with my plays. I was directing plays, and I was in those plays, and I was wearing all those hats pretty comfortably. I just started to gravitate to a lot of the people out there, like Julie Delpy and Lena Dunham, and moving out here a little bit more, Lena Waite. Like, these are the people that I gravitate to mentally. There is a certain you have to have a certain way of looking at the world and thinking in order to do this. And I feel like I'm on that path. I don't know how I could ever go back.
It's interesting to me because I think people should look at your path as inspirational, because so many people, I think, put pressure on themselves to decide A, what they are, and B, put a label on what they want to become, and then have an A to B sort of line how to get there. That's the challenge in their lives, the commonality between so many of us. Whereas what it seems like you've done is you've had your world that you've chosen to live in, and you've allowed yourself to expand in ways that feel comfortable and ways that feel right, and allowing yourself to evolve. And then, having the patience to realize in the moment or in the process or in the middle of things, hey, I'm kind of becoming this now, or hey, I'm kind of becoming that now, and not having it be part of some grand plan that you started out with 10 years ago, but just giving yourself that freedom. It really seems to have benefited you, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I had forced something when I was, in my late 20s, if I had forced myself to be an actor, writer, director, first of all, I don't think I would have been very good. I had to, my own path. I've had to go through the ringer. I've I didn't hit a level of major stride like some people, when they have a great movie and, they're just huge success at 28 or 26, whatever it is. I've had a very slow and steady process of discovering myself as what I know I am right now, which is an actor, writer, director. And, I think that we are conditioned in society to make very strong decisions at a very early age, like what it is that we're going to do and who we are. And, I think my family, when I was a kid, they always saw this creative part of me, and no one ever forced me to act. I wanted to embody characters. I wanted to write in my journals. I wanted to do all these different things. And, I made decisions that were certainly against what most people were in favor of, because I remember this was a big turning point, a very big turning point for me. Here I was doing a lot of theater and doing really well and working with such wonderful theater directors and different theater companies all over the United States. And I noticed that I wanted something else. I noticed I wanted more, that I wasn't going to just be happy doing that. And it was me paying attention to that. And the transition for me to go into writing was that I had to leave acting for a while. I had to actually kind of stop it. And that was confusing for people around me, certainly other actors and directors and my agent, it was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop acting because I want to explore writing. I need to do this. And, I had other odd jobs while I was writing because you kind of have to. I mean, I was doing all kinds of things, working mostly in the creative field, in advertising and PR, where writing was also a big part of what I was doing, but it was still very artistic. But the thing is, I am the kind of person where even today, if I decide I'm going to write a whole season, I do it all at once. And so I look at the way I've done things in chunks. Like my acting was a big chunk of that was one big chapter. The writing was a big chapter where I only focused on that. Then the directing, and then slowly all started to merge. And now this is a new chapter. And I've said it so many times, I always think of this chapter in my life like Jackson Pollock's drip series painting phase in his life. It feels like it's just where, everything starts to come together, and it's just my own process and it's unique to me. It's like, I've said this with other people too, and it's just true. Every director has their style, and I just gravitated towards merging theater onto film. It just makes the most sense in the world to me. I can't even imagine doing anything else. And in fact, I have a hard time watching film when people are cut, when we cut from one person right to another. I need to see the camera always moving.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hey, I mean, what you're talking about is, again, I think just the idea of being strong enough to stay true to yourself and to truly understand yourself and have the patience to work the way that you will work best. And that's something that I think some people never really get the hang of, and some people, I guess, kind of learn that at different points in their life. I'm really curious because we're talking, of course, about Conversations of LA, which is a show that has turned so many heads and gotten so much attention and continues to more and more and more. But I mean, just going back to your backstory a bit, this long and storied career on stage, largely on the East Coast, you come out to the West Coast, and then after a few years, Conversations in LA, it feels like the kind of project that would come from someone who had a bigger chunk of their life based in LA, just from the perspective of the heart. So what was it about this setting, where did this idea come from, and how did it truly become your baby?
All right. It's just so interesting. I'm so glad that you're asking these questions. They're really awesome. Well, okay. So I am predominantly, I've lived on the East Coast. So, when I was living in upstate New York and I was running my theater company out there, and I was also working as a journalist on the side and doing a lot of things, I actually started, I was reading a lot of plays, of course, for my theater company and looking at people's works. And Carol Churchill is a playwright who's always inspired me. She's a revolutionary. She is a groundbreaker and a rule breaker. And I tend to fall in that as a category, I think, certainly because of my directing style. I tend to lean towards the avant-garde. I break the fourth wall when I'm directing theater. And so Carol Churchill, she had come out with a collection of pieces that inspired me. And I started to come up with my own version of short pieces called Conversations. And at the time, my dog was dying. She was reaching her 15th year or something like that. And I could feel it. I knew that my border collie had maybe 6 months, a year left. I didn't know what it was. So I started to write these conversations about two characters in a veterinarian office talking about euthanizing their pets. And those characters were named Theo and Chloe. And I put them to bed because I moved out to LA, and I put that aside, which is what some writers will do. You'll start something and you just put it aside for the time being. Sure. I mean, I actually remember telling my family that I was writing this, and they were just kind of flabbergasted and horrified that I would, I was expressing the grief of my dog that was going to die in such a way. So when I moved out to LA, I still have this New York mentality and this New York part of me, East Coast part of me with me here in LA. Uh-huh. And so after I was working with Ron Osborne from Moonlighting on my first feature, Eat Bitter, Taste Sweet, I realized I didn't have a reel. I'd been on the stage. I never had decided to audition for TV or film. I just never had the interest. So I decided to pick up my conversations that I was writing about Theo and Chloe, and those characters morphed into Gus and Michelle of Conversations in LA. I was like, well, my dog did die by this point. So who are these characters? And suddenly I was changing Chloe and Theo into a woman who had lost her dog, was standing at a subway station, and the subway was nowhere to be found. It's the subway in LA. And everybody knows the subway in New York, of course. But as soon as I got here, I was so curious about the LA subway, the Expo train down here in Santa Monica. Mm. And so I was changing these characters to two people that meet, and the character has just lost her dog, and my character Michelle, and she has a new pet with her, which is a hamster. And she meets this young Hispanic guy who kind of turns her world around very quickly. They have a deep soul connection. And there you have the beginning of Conversations in LA season 1.
That's amazing.
And so I met the actor, my co-star, in Starbucks when I was trying to figure out, well, I got to cast this guy. And it was just a scene at that point. I was like, I need some material for a reel so I can show people that I can act, write, direct, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we just kept doing them. I cast him because he was right. This guy I met at a Starbucks, Gustavo Velasquez, and he was very malleable. This was his first project. He was totally gung-ho. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more dedicated actor. He just wanted to go for it. And he saw my background, so he knew I wasn't just somebody, talking out of one ear, it's just like I knew what I was talking about. And I said, after doing maybe 2 scenes and filming them, I was like, I think we have something here, and we're going to keep going. And he always kept saying that first year, where is this going? What are we doing? And I'm like, you know what? Stop questioning. Let's just keep doing this. Stop asking me questions, And it's true. It was like I really had to get him, because that right there is the norm. People need to know, where are we going? Where are we going? But the fact is, I kept telling him, it's okay. We don't need to know. We just have to keep going, because something is happening. Something's happening. And I could feel it. And I was riding a certain wave, and he was, thank God, it was him that was joining me on that journey. Because, I think that by the time we finished season 1, he was finally fully convinced that, oh my God, she just created a show. So it was very wild, very wild. And, this is totally unrelated. Well, it's not totally unrelated, but I remember watching a show called a documentary show or something about Alien Nation or something like that. And that they call this area in California the vortex. Like there's some sort of vortex of energy here. And I really felt it when I moved to LA. There is that here. And, what I did was I brought my New York feel, the way I look at New York City especially, and I incorporated that into the footage of Los Angeles. Like I think of Los Angeles like New York, but spread out. So you've got Greenwich Village in New York, and you've got, Central Park, and you've got all these various places in New York City, but they're squished together. Here in LA, they're just spread out. And so for me, when I moved to LA, I was really excited about exploring, which is why we have these unique intros and outros that are montages for each episode. They're always different. That's how I've gotten to know LA.